Have you ever wondered how God sees Code 22 and how the church is unknowingly violating the code? What about the 3 reasons why the church has become a revolving door where people leave as fast as they come? Another question we must ask is, where should the post-pandemic church be? Don't you want to know how to sustain the peace of Code 22 through purpose? Or are you satisfied with just having another event? Hey man, woman of God, this is Donald Jenkins, your Master Purpose Development Coach and the CEO of the Purpose Development Institute in Atlanta, Georgia. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to get some very important insight that I'm sure that by the end of this video, you're going to find to be of great value. But first of all, before I dive into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to be talking about today, I want to congratulate you for the effort, the work that you put in to preach the message of the kingdom, to take the gospel of God's kingdom to the world. If it wasn't for you, then your community would not be able to hear the message of the kingdom or be able to experience the impact of the kingdom. So I want to be one of the ones to congratulate you on the success that you currently have, the success that you acquired over the years, and the work that you put in your community, and some of you around the world. And I want to continue to encourage you, because I understand from one pastor to the next pastor, I understand how difficult this work can be. You know, something that God has put on our life to take to the community to fight the forces of darkness. And I also want to congratulate you for being a part of Code 22 with Pastor Ovella. Yeah, I'm partnering with you all in this process to be able to take this awareness of peace and purpose, to the world. So I want to speak to you about that today. I want to speak to you about what it is that we need to do to be able to sustain peace through purpose, because this is a powerful movement. It's more than just an event. It's a movement in regards that it calls us to be able to incorporate the wisdom and understanding about purpose so that we can sustain this movement beyond that one day, beyond that event, so that we can really do exactly what we need to begin to affect change in the 21st century. And I'm sure that you would agree that when 2020 came in, we realized that we were in a new era. In other words, the thing that we did in the past no longer was going to work in 2020 and beyond. So I want to just discuss with you some of the things that we're doing here at the Purpose Development Institute to prepare not only ministry leaders, but we're also preparing corporate leaders. My company, we are the only company in the world that deals with purpose deficit disorder. And I want to speak to you about that today and kind of open your eyes a little bit as to why PDD is going to be an important subject of ministry. In other words, the future of ministry requires that we address purpose deficit disorder. And that's what I want to speak to you about today, because we're seeing tremendous results in so many areas of our society, not just with our corporate leaders, but we're seeing it with today's youth. We're doing a lot in the athletics arena with student athletes, and we're seeing how PDD is wreaking havoc in so many areas. So as we contemplate, the day, the 22nd of every month, and the day of peace and healing, let's kind of explore the reason why, we are having to put on events like this to create awareness for peace and healing. In other words, why is there so much violence in our world? Why are we so violent in regards to gun violence, violence against each other, whether it be through politics, violence in our marriage in regards to husband and wife getting into arguments that end in divorce, the violence among our children. In other words, America has become a toxic environment that creates violent language. It creates violence on so many levels. And we're doing a lot of things to address that. Even that violence has even entered into the church, where it has produced a tremendous amount of church hurt. So we need to understand that there are 2 pandemics that are going on in America. In fact, the first pandemic has been here for a long time, and we just never have had the insight on being able to address what that pandemic is. So the one pandemic you know about, COVID-19, and I'm sure that you can give me stories just like I can give you stories as to how COVID-19 has affected your ministry, has affected, your members within your ministry. But there's another pandemic that we need to start having discussions about. And that's the reason why I created the PDI Smart Masterclass for Pastor, the PDI Smart Pastor Masterclass, because we need to start not just having conversations about this pandemic, but we need to start developing the skill set on how to treat the disease and not the symptoms. Because when I'm working with my corporate clients, I see PDD wreaking havoc in corporations among leaders, wreaking havoc when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I can tell you stories about how in the last 2 years, I've done more corporate presentations than I have completed in the last 10 years, simply because of how PDD is wreaking havoc in the corporate arena as well. Well, guess what? That same disease that's wreaking havoc in corporate is also wreaking havoc in your church, pastor. And that's the reason why, we have to have not just conversations about PDD. We have to understand how to develop the skill set on how to treat this disease and not treating the symptoms. Because like my corporate clients that treat symptoms all the time, the same thing happens in the church. We end up treating the symptoms of PDD and not treating the actual disease itself. So that's the reason why we are inviting you to be a part of the PDI Smart Pastor Masterclass. Because of PDD is causing violence in so many facets of our community. And yet at the same time, we start treating the symptoms instead of treating the disease. Well, we're always talking about doing something different, Pastor. Well, in this masterclass, I'm going to show you the thing that's different that we need to start addressing as ministry leaders. And that's the reason why it's going to be extremely important for you to be a part of the PDI Smart Masterclass. So what I want to do, I want to take you to the scriptures. I want to take you to the scriptures real quickly and give you some understanding as to why it's important for us to treat PDD. You might be saying, I've never heard anything like that in my life. I haven't either, until God began to bring my attention and my awareness through the scriptures about PDD. And the first place that I saw PDD is in Romans chapter 6, and I'm not going to get into a detailed discussion, about that, but I want to make sure I can bring reference to that so that we can begin to bring that out into the open during the masterclass. We continually violate what God talked about, the Apostle Paul talked about in Romans chapter 6, because we don't understand how this disease is wreaking havoc within our ministry. This disease is causing us to minimize the church growth within our church. Not just growing in quantity, but growing in quality. And I'm sure that you would agree that the church is suffering bad when it comes to growing in quality. Well, guess who is the culprit behind that? PDD. But I want to read Romans chapter 12, verses 2 to you and make the connection from the scriptures as to why it's important that you begin to develop the skill set and bring about the understanding about PDD. And it declares, and be not conformed to the world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Well, Pastor, you heard it yourself, and I'm sure that you've quoted that scripture over and over and over again over the years. Very important scriptures, that we as ministry leaders, we understand that it means that we're supposed to work with believers in the capacity of helping them transform themselves by the renewing of their mind. Well, here's what we have not taken into consideration, and that is PDD. The harder we work to preach the gospel, PDD is working behind the scenes to undermine the believer's ability to transform. I'm going to say it again. The harder we work to preach the gospel, PDD is working behind the scenes, working harder behind the scenes to undermine the believer's ability to transform by the renewing of their mind. So we end up treating the symptoms and not treating the disease. PDD is a disease that can be treated. And that's what I want to show you how to do in the PDI Smart Masterclass. I want to show you how, step by step, how you can position yourself to treat that disease. So when you begin to start treating that disease as a ministry leader, then you're going to begin to affect change within yourself. And I'm sure that you understand this concept, and that is change begat change. Change in the pulpit will beget change in the pews. Another thing about PDD is that PDD, once you remove PDD, it will unleash your ability to grow even more. And I'm sure that you would agree, as a leader, we should always be growing. So when you start growing, then guess what? Now that growth is going to be within the pews, and that growth is also going to be within the community as well. Then it's going to infiltrate all the way out into the marketplace. So you can see that the church is the epicenter for change. I'm going to say it again. The church is the epicenter of change. And it starts with the code 22. In other words, we are going to position you to acquire the insight to not violate Romans 12, 1 and 2. Romans chapter 6, and its relation to PDD in that particular passage of scripture, so that now we can unleash our highest growth potential that will attract the glory of God back to the church. It will restore the glory of God back to the church, so that now all the things that we've lost over the years, we can now gain some ground in this critical season of the world. So again, I want to invite you to be a part of the PDI Smart Masterclass. Thank you for being a part of Code 22, but I also want to invite you to be a part of the PDI Smart Masterclass, because it's going to give you the insight on how to sustain peace through purpose. I'm going to say it again. It's going to give you the insight on how to sustain peace through purpose. And now we can begin to see the change from the pulpit to the pews, all the way out into the community, so that now we can treat this disease that's causing violence in our world. And you can go to my website, www.pdiatl.com/events. Make sure that you register for this first masterclass. This is one class that you do not want to miss, Pastor. And I look forward to, number one, participating with you in Code 22 with Pastor Ovella. And I also look forward to participating and helping you understand how to treat this disease that's undermining our highest growth potential.
Power. Realize your power. Finding out myself. Finding out myself. Power. Realize your power. Finding out myself. Finding out myself.